Greetings and welcome. This is the ThaBadbrey Herbalist Asar. And today I am the ThaBadbrey Astrologer. And today I'm going to bring to you the astrological weather report for London and surrounding counties. Now, this is a branch of astrology known as Astrometeorology, which deals with weather delineation, weather analysis, and weather prediction using astrology. Okay? So, as you can see here, this is a lunation chart. A lunation chart is based upon the phase of the moon, all right? If you're not already aware, the moon changes phase every 7 days or so. And as she does so, the weather actually manifests in accordance to the phase that she's actually made and the aspect she casts and where she actually is in the chart, okay? So, as you can see, this is a lunation chart for the last quarter moon, which took place yesterday on the day of Saturn, otherwise known as Saturday, 18th of February 2017, at 7:33 p.m. during her hour, which is the hour of the moon, all right? So, first of all, let me give you an overview of what the weather is going to be like for the next 7 days or so. And to do this, the first thing we do is look at the angles, all right? The angles are the first house, the 10th house, the 7th house, and the 4th house. As we can see here, the first house cusp is on Virgo. Virgo is a cold and dry sign. It's associated with coldness and dryness. That is Virgo's temperament, all right? So straight away we can say it is going to be slightly cold but more or less dry for the majority of this week. The ruler of Virgo is Mercury. Mercury is right over here in Aquarius, an air sign, and in these type of charts, Mercury usually denotes the wind and governs what type of wind will actually be blowing. So straight away we know that it is going to be coldish, moistish cold and dry for the majority of the next 7 days or so, due to the fact that Mercury is right here in the air sign of Aquarius and the first house cusp is on Virgo, all right? The next thing we do is look at the 10th house. The 10th house cusp is Gemini. Gemini is an air sign and is associated with hotness and moistness, okay? And the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. As I said, Mercury denotes the wind. So therefore, although it's going to be cold-ish as well as being dry, there's also going to be a tendency for the wind to be hot, warm-ish with some moisture. So therefore, you're going to get an alternating wind. You're going to get some wind that feels like it's kind of wintry, and sometimes you're going to get some wind gusts that feel like they're slightly warmer as the weather actually changes, as we are moving into spring anyway, okay? Because it's right at the end of winter right now, due to the fact that the sun has just entered into Pisces, which heralds the end of winter, all right? And that brings me on to the next point. We look at the 7th house cusp, and the 7th house cusp is right on Pisces. Pisces is a sign associated with coldness and moistness, as well as being associated with trickling rain of some type, okay? Because Pisces is a water sign, all right? Now, the fact that the sun has just ingressed into Pisces tells me, as I said, we are leaving the middle of winter and we're heading towards the end of it, okay? So the weather is going to heat up due to the fact that the sun, he brings his heat into the cold moistness of Pisces and it heats her up, and this causes steam to form. And this is why when you look up in the sky, you would see white clouds forming, all right? Now, the next thing we look at is the 4th house cusp. The 4th house cusp is on Sagittarius, all right? Sagittarius is a hot, dry sign, a fire sign, all right? So this tells me that there's going to be more of a tendency towards dryness for this week, and it is going to be slightly warmer than it has been, all right? The ruler of Sagittarius, as well as the ruler of Pisces, are both, traditionally speaking, Jupiter. Now, where is Jupiter in the chart? Jupiter is right over here in the second house in the air sign of Libra. Jupiter being in this configuration, based upon my experience of looking at these type of astrometeorological charts, tells me that a lot of white clouds are actually going to be forming as a result of this. Okay. And then this trine between Jupiter and Mercury also tells me that it's likely that these white clouds, which are being formed by Jupiter, so they are Jupiterian whitish grayish clouds, are going to be pulled in or pushed in by the wind that will be blowing them as a result of Mercury making this trine with Jupiter. All right. And then we look at the part of fortune. The part of fortune is not a planet, it is an Arabic part, okay? And the part of fortune is right down here in the fire sign of Sagittarius. Yes? Sagittarius is hot and dry. And the part of fortune being here tells me that it's very, very likely that it's going to be more of a tendency towards warming up the actual weather itself rather than having a tendency towards making it colder. All right? And this supports the statement of the sun moving into Pisces and we coming towards the end of winter. All right. Now, as you can see, the part of fortune is making a trine to spontaneous Uranus, who is in the fire sign of Aries, which tells me there's going to be a lot of spontaneous bright spells as well as heat spikes. All right. Straight away. So for the next 7 days, it's going to be quite dry, and the weather's actually going to be heating up, okay, as we move towards the end of winter. So it looks like we're going to have quite an early spring. From what I can see here, we're going to have quite an early spring. This whole week is going to feel like an early spring. It's not even going to feel like we're still in winter. So let me give you a delineation of what the weather is likely to be like for the rest of this day. All right. Today is the day of the sun, otherwise known as Sunday. All right. And to find out what the weather is going to be like, we look at where the moon actually is and what aspect she's actually casting, as well as the places and positions of the other planets in the actual chart. All right. So first of all, I'm looking at the moon. She has just left the sign of her fall, which was Scorpio, and she is ingressed into Sagittarius, a hot and dry sign. All right. And that's where she is right now. She's making a square to the sun. The sun has just ingressed, as I said, into Pisces, which heralds the end of winter, and he's heating up all of that Piscean water and causing white clouds to form. And she, coming out of the sign of her fall, is bringing all of those clouds with her from Scorpio and bringing them towards the hotness of Sagittarius, which causes these clouds to form into what looks like steamy like conditions in the actual sky itself. So you're going to see a lot of steamy clouds coming up in the sky for the majority of today. All right. And then we look at the ruler of Sagittarius, because she's in Sagittarius right now, the moon. So we look at the ruler of Sagittarius, which is Jupiter. Jupiter's right over here in the air sign of Libra. Jupiter actually being here denotes some type of white clouds forming again. So it supports the premise that there's going to be white clouds forming in the air. All right. Also, due to the fact that Saturn right over here is oriental, he rises before the sun. He's oriental, therefore his temperament is cold and moist, and he is making a sextile to Jupiter. Now, due to the fact that Saturn, being cold and moist, is making a sextile to Jupiter, Jupiter receives Saturn into exaltation. Okay, the Saturn is exalted in Libra. So therefore, Jupiter, having all of these white clouds, receives the cold moistness of Saturn into exaltation, and therefore these white clouds will have a tendency to try to turn more grey or try to fill with water in some way, while at the same time the wind and air will be blowing them. Okay. Now, the other thing we can actually see right here is the fact that Mercury, right here, which is ruled by the angles, the first house and the 10th house, Mercury right here is making a sextile to spontaneous Uranus. okay? And spontaneous Uranus is conjunct hot Mars, all right? So Mercury, denoting the wind, will cause the wind to ensue and cause the wind to accelerate. And the sextile that Mercury's making with Uranus will cause the wind to accelerate and be spontaneous. So you're going to have alternating wind. Sometimes it's going to be wind gusts, sometimes it will speed up, and sometimes it will actually slow down. And then the conjunction between spontaneous Uranus and a hot-headed Mars will cause a lot of bright spells and heat spikes to take place as a result. So what you will actually have for the majority of today is you will see white clouds that have a tendency towards turning grey, and then every so often the wind would actually blow and it will clear a little bit, and then you'll have bright spells and heat spikes taking place spontaneously, and this will alternate throughout the whole day as a result of this configuration that we can actually see here. Now, the other thing is that as the moon traverses Sagittarius, what she will actually do will make a square to Neptune, okay? Now, the moon will be carrying on her back a lot of the moisture that she already had with her from her fallen state when she was in Scorpio, and all of those steamy-ish clouds that she's receiving from this sun over here, from this square with the sun, all right, will also be on her back and in her wake. Yes? Okay? But what you will see, which will actually take place, is the fact that when she goes and makes this square with Neptune later on, probably later on today afternoon, that it may cause the clouds to become even more grey and try and have a tendency towards filling with rain and try to cause some type of precipitation. But if it actually takes place, it's likely that it'll be very light and just sprinkle for a little bit as a result of Mercury that will continue to blow the clouds away. But usually in these charts, whenever the moon makes any type of aspect with wet Neptune, who's in wet Pisces, usually it causes some type of rainfall or precipitation. So it's likely that the clouds will probably darken at some point today when she actually makes that square with Neptune, and it may have a tendency towards rain, and the clouds will fill with water and moisture even more so than earlier. All right, but I think it's likely that it will be pushed away and it wouldn't really take root. But we will see, because this spontaneous Uranus is known to act unexpectedly. Okay, so basically what we're going to see for today is you're going to see alternating bright spells and heat spikes intermingled with a lot of grey clouds that have a tendency to look like they're turning grey. Then as soon as they're turning grey, the wind blows them away, and then you'll see some heat spikes and bright spells happen again. And this kind of configuration will alternate throughout the whole of Sunday, the day of the sun. All right, so there you go. I gave you an overview of what the weather is likely to be like for the next 7 days as a result of the last quarter moon lunation chart. And I also gave you an overview what the weather is actually going to be like for the remainder of the day of the sun, otherwise known as Sunday, in London and surrounding counties. There you go. The ThaBadbrey Herbalist Asar, ancient astrologer of the ThaBadbreyHerbal.co.uk. Stay tuned. I will be back.